Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Embed Predictive Analytics into Your Applications with RapidMiner. I'm Haley Matissa with RapidMiner, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. We're joined today by Bhupendra Patil, our Director of Global Sales Consulting at RapidMiner, and Dylan Cotter, our Director of Channel Sales here at RapidMiner. We'll get started in just a few minutes, but first a few housekeeping items for those on the line. Today's webinar is being recorded, and you receive a link to the on-demand version via email within 1 to 2 business days. You're free to share that link with colleagues who are not able to attend today's live session. Second, if you have any trouble with audio or video today, your best bet is to try logging out and logging back in, which should resolve the issue in most cases. Finally, we'll have a question and answer session at the end of today's presentation. Please feel free to ask questions at any time via the questions panel on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll leave time at the end to get to everyone's questions. I'll now go ahead and pass it over to Dylan.
Great, thanks Haley, and good morning and good afternoon for those who are joining us. We've got a really good audience, and a big thank you out from the RapidMiner team for joining this webcast. We had a lot of inquiry from customers and partners on embedding predictive analytics in your application, so happy to be able to share that with you today. So we have a good agenda, so let's jump right into it. Let's see. So Bhupendra, who's on the phone with me, is going to run through some live examples and illustrations. We're going to cover several things. So one, showing how to embed predictive analytics in BI and visual data discovery applications. Also some really good examples of web pages and web applications, so how you might incorporate that. And we'll also touch on automation frameworks. After that, I'll then jump into a quick overview of the data science platform from RapidMiner, and then a few company highlights to talk about what we're up to. And then last but not least, share some information about how you can learn more. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Bhupendra, and he's going to take us through some live examples to kick things off.
Excellent, and thank you, and welcome to all. Let me share my screen here, and we'll get started. Excellent. Hopefully, at this point, everyone is able to see my screen here. And what you're seeing on your screen right now is one of the popular BI application, ClickSense in this case. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of how we have integrated with ClickSense, Tableau, and other BI platforms, and some more examples. But to get started off with, let's see the classic problem with dashboarding tools, right? Many of the dashboarding BI platforms provide you value by showing you historical data. So for example, here I have some state level information for customers who are churning. Many of these applications provide you very good drill down capabilities where I can select, in this case, let's say the states, and you'll notice my average churn rate or my service quality rankings are now based on just those states, right? So this is all good. It helps you understand and dissect your data in whichever shape and form you want. But now with the need of advanced analytics, what if we could allow the results of predictive analytics embedded in an application like ClickSense in this case, so that your business analyst, the guys who are making the decision, who are looking at data every day in and out, can see the value of predictive analytics right in the platform that they're used to. So to show you a quick example here, we saw I can drill down and all that. But what if I wanted to build a predictive model using this historical data and then use that for predicting, how my churn is going to happen in each of these states? To do that, I select which data to use for my model building. In this case, I'm saying 2014. And I switch over to my prediction tab here in ClickSense, right? We're still in our classic ClickSense dashboard. We're not doing anything fancy. The key thing to note here is I have a series of charts here that show me, using my historical data, what are the factors affecting churn. So for example, most of my churners seem to be in the bucket greater than 60 or 70. I have more male churners compared to female. And depending on the number of calls barred or two-way barred, these are the churn fractions. The quick thing you can see here is there are some patterns emerging, but as soon as you start drilling it further at a state level, the patterns keep changing, right? So just like your historical data changes based on state and the selections, what if the models can also be different, right? What if you could rebuild models dynamically from a dashboarding application like this and do predictive analytics right there? So to illustrate that, I have the charts which are yellow and in the bottom section of the screen here. What I'm going to do here is we will select a bunch of states. So I'll just highlight some random states here just to show you the integration. And when I've selected this states, I can then click on this reload button. When I hit the reload button, behind the scenes, we are calling RapidMiner server, which is actually building some predictive models. But in this case, it is actually building models based purely on the states we just selected. And then once the model is built, it will actually go ahead and do the predictions of which customers are going to churn. And then finally, show you the factors that are going to be responsible for churn in those limited number of states. So the key thing to show here is I can drive predictive models right from a classic dashboarding application, ClickSense in this case. And here my data has loaded. And a very important thing to note here is to notice there's a big difference between the factors when you're looking at the data at the country level versus at a selected state level. The factors are very different. The genders that probably are going to churn are very different for those selected states. And this is the power of predictive analytics. But now let's say this was your campaign manager who's planning to build campaigns for churn prevention. He now has the power of predictive analytics right within the dashboard that they're used to seeing daily and taking the decisions based off. Now we powered this with the RapidMiner server, and I'll showcase how we actually did it. But before I go into the technical pieces of how the integration works, let's look at another example here. This time I'm going to use a Tableau Dashboard, another popular BI dashboarding platform out there, right? A very popular data set. Some of you may have already encountered this. This is about movie ratings by hundreds of users across various categories of movies. And you can look at the historical charts here on the left, which shows you what are the kind of ratings you're getting. So kind of denser the plot, that's higher ratings and so on. So this is easily possible with the platform like Tableau, where you can simply bring in that historical data about ratings, movies, and so on. But what if you wanted to provide predictive stuff right within the dashboard? So in this case, when I click on one of this user rating, the top chart here shows me the historical information. What are the movies I have watched? I can highlight each one of them and see the title and rating and so on. But you'll notice now I have something very powerful at the bottom here. Now this is a very classic movie example. Based on my previous ratings, at the bottom here, I'm actually making some recommendations on the fly, right? So here is another case. Tableau Dashboard is great at presenting information. It is great at showing you historical analytics. But now, simply by embedding results from RapidMiner in this dashboard, we are making it possible to consume predictive analytics in a very easy to use manner, Tableau in this case. Earlier, you saw me doing ClickSense. Obviously, these are just two BI applications we are using for demonstration purposes. In real world, there are dozens of vendors that provide very powerful analytic applications. Microsoft, TIBCO, there are other companies like Logi and whatnot, right? RapidMiner provides a very easy, efficient way for you to embed predictive analytics with pretty much any dashboarding and BI application out there. And then the mode of consumption of predictive analytics is your very familiar dashboarding platform that you are. So that's obviously your internal customers, business analysts, but I'm sure most of these users are not only living their lives in dashboards, right? They are interacting with maybe internal websites. They are interacting with probably external websites. They're probably submitting information, and sometimes they want an answer right away. So to show an example of that, I'm going to switch over to one more demonstration here. I'm sure all of you are familiar with Netflix, where once you watch a movie, based on how you rated that movie, it comes back and tells you what other movies you may like. And the way it works is it looks at your historical patterns of what kind of movies you like. Obviously, it compares that with the rest of the Netflix user base. And based on the patterns it finds, it can recommend you good movies. The same concept applies to Amazon, right? When you buy an iPhone, it's probably going to ask you about the new earpods. It might ask you about a case for it. So how are those things done, right? All of us are into a business of selling something or the other. Now it will be nice if we can easily embed those kind of functionality, the things that Netflix and Amazon does, into a dashboarding or even a website or web app like this, right? To show an example, we have a very basic bakery data set here. Every time I click on one of these items to add to the cart, you'll notice at the very bottom here, I'm being recommended a different product. So every time I click on this, we're actually calling something behind the scenes which understands what did you click on. It obviously has historical information about what patterns emerge out of people's buying behavior. And then based on that, I'm actually delivering recommendations to my users, or rather in this case, the customers for this particular bakery. So again, I'm showing another example of how predictive analytics can help you internal use cases, as well as in this case, you can probably start selling more. And this is just one example. Now, switching gears, another example before we get into the technical pieces of how we did this and how easy it is to actually do all of this, right? Here is another example of medical claims, industry that obviously is trying to keep the costs down. You want to make sure the claims that you're submitting, if you're a healthcare company provider, that they get accepted more than likely, so that there is, rework is minimum. So in this case, this is a fictional insurance workbench where every time my hospital sends some claims, before I actually submit the claim, I actually run it through my fraud detection system, and you'll notice for those fraud or for those claims, I have a very clear indicator of whether something is a fraud or not, a very clear flag, binary, true or false, and then some score. So at this point, if I think a true with a 96% obviously means there's something terribly wrong with this claim, I can simply reject it so that it goes back to my review queue. But as a manual, maybe it's a fraud, but only 69 is the score. Maybe I can look into the details and finally just approve it. But the idea here is not only, this day and age, people are looking at a lot of information. Looking at all that information makes it difficult for us to make decisions. What RapidMiner in this case is providing you is a way to augment that decision-making capability. The way here is to provide outputs of a predictive model, giving an indication of what this particular claim looks like. Is it a fraud or not? And thereby the humans can decide what action to take on this. Now, this is obviously good when you have a batch need like this, right? I can run this models overnight, and then I have embedded the results here in this dashboard or in this particular web page. And this refreshes, let's say, every night, every hour based on my needs. But then there are many, many use cases out there, and especially with the speed of things happening these days, where you need the answer right away. So for example, what if we could take this one step further, and when your person who is responsible for entering claim data goes ahead and is entering the claim. Now, when they go ahead and say, submit this claim, what if I could just tell them right away, hey, the data you just submitted makes me think that it is not a fraud, so go ahead and submit it. Or in a better situation, what if the data they entered was actually a fraud? I can go ahead and submit, and there it is. It seems this particular combination, or if I'm paying so much and the number of prescriptions are that high, obviously there's something funny going on here, and it seems like a fraud. Now, this could potentially be a simple data entry problem, but now that the fraud engine tells me that this is a fraud, maybe the person who is entering this data can quickly review, did I just enter some wrong data, or is there something more here? Is this really a fraudulent claim or something like that, right? You just saved yourself hours and hours of rework because you have now embedded the power of predictive analytics in their workbench, in their day-to-day application. So great, over here I have a fraud score. I know it's a fraud, but many of you might be asking a question, why is this a fraud? How do I know what factors influence this, right? So let's take another use case here. For the same claims data, we are calculating a very simple flag of whether this data is an outlier or not. Again, we are running some predictive analytics behind the scenes. We are running some models, and then we are identifying the outliers. In this case, for the current claims, which of them seem way off compared to their peers. So great, I have a false or true flag, just like we did earlier with the fraud. So in this case, I know which are the outliers or not. But with a platform like RapidMiner and with some unique capabilities we have, we not only give you the decision, like why is it an outlier or why is it a fraud, but give you the reasoning behind it. So in this case, I know this particular record is a outlier because of all these combinations that were not met. So in this case, obviously the max prescription above 80 is a red flag, or this amount is a red flag. So not only your users have an idea about whether it's a fraud, whether it's outlier or not, but they can drill down further and see the reasoning behind it. And maybe at some point, this may not be perfect. Models are supposed to be accurate, but none of them can guarantee 100% accuracy. But at this point, your human knowledge can come into play. And when we look at the conditions that were met in this case or not met, they can decide what is the true nature of the problem. Is it really an outlier? Is it really a fraud? And then obviously, they can take actions based on this. So as you noticed, we saw how I can deliver results in a ClickSense dashboard and drive and build models dynamically. We saw in Tableau how I can embed predictive analytics result, how I can sell more by adding additional features into my solutions, or how I can empower my decision-making employees with the relevant information that is powered by years and years of research and mathematics behind it. So all this is a different way to consume the information of predictive analytics. And so far, if you have seen the value, the good thing is these are the people who are not your data scientists, but they can still understand the results, they can still consume the results. So certainly the power of your data science is democratized. You're delivering the results out to a broader audience. But let's see how we did all of this, right? And how we brought the results into the favorite applications, whether it's a website, whether it's a web app or a dashboard or whatnot, right? So just like, all these applications make the life of a user easier, let's look at what can be done to make the life of a data scientist easier. And that is what RapidMiner is all about. We are a data science platform that allows you to do real data science, but in a very simple, efficient way. What I'm doing here is I'm connected to one of our RapidMiner servers. This is a shared repository where I have various projects saved. Me and my team collaborates on this server pretty much every single day. For today's demonstration on how I build this, we are going to work through, let's say, this outlier detection mechanism. How did I even find outliers, right? So RapidMiner as a platform allows you to read data from pretty much any place. So if I search for the word read, you'll notice we have various read and write operators here. For some of you who are familiar with RapidMiner, this is going to be a revision, but I'll keep this short. The goal here is to show how the embedding works. So in this case, if I want to read from a database, I can simply use a read database operator and configure it. But to keep this demonstration short, for now, we're just going to use this pre-configured dataset connection. And I'll show you quickly what do I have in the data here. This is my historical data set. And over here, using all these various columns, I need to find outliers, right? That was our goal for the day. So to find outliers, if I simply search for the word outlier here, you'll notice RapidMiner shortlists, about a dozen plus algorithms that are available to you to get if something is an outlier or not. In this case, let's say I want to do a simple distance-based outlier. So I'm going to place an operator here, and we'll leave the configurations to default for now, and I simply run the play button here. When RapidMiner is done running the data through the outlier detection algorithm, you'll actually notice it comes back with a binary flag of true or false. So we said, give me the top 10 outliers, and there they are, right? If I need to, let's say, find, instead of 10, I need to find the top 20, there you are. So this is just one algorithm. Maybe you're not satisfied with the results. Maybe you don't want to see, a specific number of outliers. Maybe you want a way to really let the system figure out who are the outliers, or you want a generic score. There are other algorithms like EdgeBoss in this case. I'll run this one more time, and this time instead of a flag of true or false, I have an outlier score. And in this case, the higher the number, the higher the score is. Now you notice how easy it is for me to bring in the data, in this case, the simple outlier data set. But then I have the ability to use all this advanced analytics techniques without having to write a single line of code. Instead of this, if I want to start building models, we just saw outlier detection, but in a similar way, we have various predictive algorithms available in a drag and drop fashion. So if you're looking for more than just a binary outlier, you want to really see the patterns, there you go. I can build a decision tree model, and it will show me the paths that lead to somebody, being in a fraud or not, right? So as you notice, all those things that a data scientist required, whether it's various algorithms or techniques like cross validation, right, or even optimization techniques, everything that a data scientist requires is in a drag and drop environment. And once you have built a workflow like this, obviously our goal as we started off today was to make it available to a broader audience. Me getting a result of an outlier score or outlier flag in this application is no good if I can't deliver this to my users, right, or the people who are actually going to need that information. So how do I do that? So various ways to do that. First of all, RapidMiner provides ability to write to pretty much anything out there, right? Files or databases. So this is like a very classic approach. I could run this, and once I'm done building a workflow, I could, let's say, simply go ahead and save it. So let's go ahead and save it today in this folder here, web services, and we'll call it, save the scores for now. So I can always write to a database, and my other applications can pick from there, which is a fair enough solution for many, many use cases, because you probably are going to run this once overnight or once every hour, and the database is probably going to be read multiple times by various dashboards and so on. Once I've saved it, I have the ability to go ahead and schedule it, so your system now becomes automatically able to deliver the solution answers wherever it is, right? Or in case of ClickView or Tableau, there are specialized operators built so that you can just write directly to formats that they prefer. So there are operators that, just like you write to a database, you can write to a ClickView or a Tableau dataset. But in our other use case where we were actually calling workflows dynamically, you remember in ClickSense, I was selecting a bunch of states, I was passing those values of states, and I was doing something here, right? So let's say we are still doing outlier detection, but the value I really want to pass is how many outliers I want. So I'm going to variabilize this. I'm going to call it number of values, right? So rather than a hard-coded value of 10, I'm going to build something that we can call from web services, from web apps, mobile apps, or wherever, but I'm going to allow the end user decide the number of outliers. So we have created the workflow. In this case, we already saved it, saved the scores. Now, let's say this is your data science project. You want to make this available to the rest of the world. How do I go about that? Pretty straightforward. I can right-click and hit Browse, and that takes you to the RapidMiner server interface here. I'm going to quickly log in. And over here, at the top, you'll notice I'm looking at the workflow that I was using earlier. Every workflow that RapidMiner actually builds, you have the flexibility to convert that to a web service in one click. So when I click on this export as a service, it will now grab that whole complex workflow, whatever you had in there, as a web endpoint. And then it also gives you the flexibility to decide what kind of formats you prefer. So JSON, very popular for web apps. OData, Tableau can read from it. XML, something ClickSense can understand. Or if you just want to bring like a very plain HTML table and maybe with some custom CSS, go ahead and do that. But you'll notice you have a rich set of options so that you can change RapidMiner to deliver the results in the type that is preferred by your other applications. So in this case, let's say I want to stick with a JSON application. Now remember I said I have a parameter to pass, so I'm going to make RapidMiner aware of it, and I'll say my number of values is going to be passed as a variable n, and we hit submit. Now in this case, RapidMiner goes ahead and creates a service ID for you. I can now go ahead and test it quickly here. So we'll go ahead and specify the value. And in this case, I have an error, and it actually tells me that it cannot find the location. The reason for that is I did not use a relative path. So let's go back and fix that quickly here, right? So what happened here is, and actually I missed this warning. RapidMiner helps you understand what potential problems you have, and here it is warning me that this path is not relative. So let me just fix that, and let's save it one more time. So I have done that now, and let's say I want 4 outliers, and we are going to test it. And I think I have another issue here, but let's complete that problem. Number of values. All right, I'm going to define that this is a variable I expect to pass. There you go, and save this one more time. And again, we are just making sure the variables that I'm passing can be there. Oh, it's expecting an integer, but it's passing a variable. Okay. So anyways, this is how you pass variables. I have some data type problems, but to show you an example of something working here, I have all these web services. So earlier when we saw the medical fraud one, that was this web service. When I was calling something from the market basket, that is this web service. Now you simply use this web service, and then once you have completed your web app or ClickSense, let's see how we can do that. So if I have to now integrate one of those web services with the ClickView app, I can simply come here in the ClickView data editor. I say create a new connection. We say click REST connector, give it a unique name, whatever we're going to call it. And then click in this case allows you to point to a web API. In this case, I can simply paste the URL. So let's say my server was partnerserver.rapidminer.com, and API/REST and the unique ID that we created, right? So that is how you simply can bring in, and this would now allow you to bring the data from a RapidMiner workflow into ClickSense. Remember, we added a parameter. I can now simply go ahead and say number of values, and then I can pass a value to it or map it to a ClickView parameter. The same concept applies for Tableau. And when you're working web apps, like I showed you earlier, the bakery example or the fraud example, once you have a web API like this, you can simply then start calling it using JavaScript or whatever the language of your choice is. So in this particular example here, this is my HTML that goes and puts everything in a fancy way. At the very top here, I tell which is my server that is hosting all the RapidMiner services. These are the various methods. And to make it available over a web service is as simple as these 4 lines here. I'm making a post call, passing some data to it, and then once I have the data, I populate my HTML template with that. So as you notice, this maybe 70 lines of code is what put all those web services, all that predictive analytics into a complex web app like you saw earlier on the fraud detection system here, right? So again, the complexity of data science is taken away because we are a code-free platform. The complexity of making it available to a broader audience is taken away because it's a matter of converting them to web services and then using your standard techniques from ClickSense, Tableau, other BI platforms, as well as standard programming techniques to now make those results available across any application. So hopefully with that, I was able to show you how we see our customers embedding predictive analytics into various applications and why they choose RapidMiner, because it's damn easy to obviously build predictive analytics, but it's even more easier to now make it available to a broader audience beyond your data scientist group there. So with that, I'll turn it back to Dylan, and we'll be also taking question and answers here. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Bhupendra. So what brings us to the next section here. So hopefully that gives you a really good sense of how you would go about, whether it's a data discovery application like we saw, or web applications, of how you might go about integrating RapidMiner. So let's take a step further now and talk just real quickly about the platform itself. So you saw capabilities from ability to do data prep. So this is blending and cleansing data so that you can actually run your models and apply your models. So RapidMiner supports data prep, applying models, and then more importantly, validating that those models work. And then last but not least, we saw sort of live examples of how you would operationalize that, how you would put those models into production. Just from a platform standpoint, the products that we saw today were RapidMiner Studio. So the data scientists, much like Bhupendra, would use that environment in a code optional way. So you can use code. So if you've got R or Python scripts that you want to incorporate, you certainly can incorporate those. Or you could use the process operators and drag and drop those into a way where you could create a workflow as we saw. So RapidMiner Studio is used by the data scientists on the desktop. The RapidMiner server is a collaborative environment. So you saw him in Bhupendra's desktop where he was able to publish those models and then schedule the models to run. So all the collaboration and sharing of models occurs on the RapidMiner server. And then last but not least, we didn't discuss Hadoop, but if you want all of the processes that you build in RapidMiner very easily can be pushed down into Hadoop cluster without having to install software. It's a very powerful capability of RapidMiner. And then on the very top, you'll notice when you're in the RapidMiner application, there's a breadth of a really strong partner community who've created operators or extensions that you can incorporate in your workflow. So you can build those yourself. So there's an API around that allows you to build custom operators. So if there's some great new algorithm that comes out, you can incorporate that. So just kind of just a refresher on what we saw. So there was the server piece. As Bhupendra had mentioned, the services were exposed as a web services endpoint. And quick, very simple again, so right-click, you publish it, and you expose it on the service in various formats so you can provide inputs and outputs. So with the data discovery applications ClickView, we saw you could define inputs and outputs. So for bidirectional interaction with RapidMiner, and that was around customer churn analytics. With the movie recommendation engine built into Tableau, we saw how behind the scenes it was calling RapidMiner an algorithm to recommend the next best movie. We saw the pastry website, so we're able to make recommendations. You buy a coffee, maybe you would consider buying a Danish. And then the medical fraud claims application, that was another example. We saw it sort of giving us results, but then also the ability to sort of score those claims dynamically, and then also tell us why a particular claim could be fraudulent, and it's up to the business users to go back and make that decision. Okay. And then one of the things in terms of automation frameworks, any of the process that you build can be called. So if there's a schedule process operator that's available, so for BPM engines or command line or shell scripts, you can automate, plug RapidMiner into those frameworks to automate a process. Okay. Great. So just a quick glance at RapidMiner. It's a very strong user community. So hopefully this has inspired you to figure out how you might incorporate predictive analytics into your applications. And so we have a very strong community of partners who have expertise who can help fast track that process for you. So working with some of the data discovery tools as well as creating applications. We'd be glad to make introductions. You'll see that, in addition to the community and partners, good feedback and recognition from the analyst. So Gardner and Forrester, if you want to learn more, they'd be glad to take questions, I'm sure, as well. So how do you learn more? What are options for education? So lots of videos, free Jumpstart videos are available. Online documentation is off the website. Very simply go up and download RapidMiner and get started with it. We offer classroom training, so that's online, or it can be face-to-face as well, but that's available, so it's easy to get up and going. And then certification that is also available. So with that, I know there were quite a few questions that were coming in as Bhupender was going through the demo today. But again, thank you for the webcast, and please reach out to us if you're interested, and love to share more with you. So with that, let's open it up to Q&A.
Great. I'll just pipe in quickly. This is Haley again. So thanks, BP and Dylan. And as a reminder, we're going to be sending a recorded version of today's presentation within the next few business days. So like Dylan said, now it's time to go ahead and post your questions into the questions panel. And I'll go ahead and address the first few questions that I've seen come in now. So Dylan, this question's for you. Do R and Python scripts work on the server once you publish them as a process?
They do, yes. So there are operators actually in RapidMiner, just like Bhupender had shown, that you can drag onto the canvas. Same thing, just like when you publish, a web services endpoint, those can be published to the server. So you can, if you like the code and oftentimes you've got R scripts or Python scripts, you can paste it into the operator, but then take advantage of the scaling of the server. So that's kind of the powerful thing. So once you decide to deploy it in production, it can be deployed on the RapidMiner server. So yes.
Great, thanks. Another question for you, Dylan. Is it possible to white label RapidMiner?
The quick answer, short answer to that is yes. So the RapidMiner server that was running behind the scenes, can be white labeled. The studio client you saw is not. It's more of a co-brand scenario. But that's it is something we would support. So
great, thanks. I've got a question here for you, BP. Will you be posting the source code to the web app for fraud detection and/or step-by-step screenshots for Click?
Yeah. So for our Click and Tableau demonstrations that I showed you today, these are all very well documented. We can definitely point you to those. For the fraud detection or the bakery app that we did, that was based off some basic JavaScript and HTML, but I'm more than happy to share that example with the audience here. So maybe we'll take that as an action item and follow up with you and share the code with you directly. But yes, we can definitely do it.
Great, yeah, that's a good idea. Dylan, a question here for you. What other business intelligence tools do you integrate with?
Well, so hopefully it came across today on the the webcast that as long as tools can interface with an API or pull from a database, as RapidMiner had shown. So tools that have an API and can accept input parameters. So we saw how you can do that bidirectionally. So there are a lot of applications that support that today. Data discovery as well as reporting tools. So that's supported. And then the other way, obviously, is, and more appropriately, sometimes is to pull directly from the data source. So whether it's Hadoop or one of the databases.
Great, thanks. So I am getting a bunch of questions about the recording. Like I said, we will be sending the recorded version of today's presentation via email within the next 1 to 2 business days. So if you're looking for that, we will be sending that to the email that you registered with. I've got another question here for you, Dylan. Where can we find more information on using the server APIs?
Yeah, so that as I mentioned, everything is documented. Go to the RapidMiner website. So really good user community as well as online docs. And as Bhupender had mentioned, the examples with Tableau as well as ClickView that we had shown, those they actually reference the API documents. So those are good to check out as well. So we'll send that up as a follow-up. We'll send that to attendees.
Great, thanks. Another question here for you, Dylan. What licensing considerations are there when embedding with RapidMiner?
Licensing considerations. I would. That's one that feel free to reach out to us. I'm happy to talk about that. But we have an OEM program, so you can effectively we have OEM license agreements. But happy to discuss that in person.
Just another question on the Q&A. Who do we reach out to when we collaborate a project? We want to collaborate a project with the RapidMiner. Dylan, maybe you want to take that?
Yes, I would reach out. So you can reach out to me. It's dcotter@RapidMiner. And then as a follow-up, Haley, maybe to the attendees, you reach out to me. I would say dcotter@rapidminer.com or directly through our sales line, and we'll follow up with you. That's probably the best, actually, sales line. So.
Yeah, we can put some follow-up.
Either or, yeah.
Great. Yeah, we'll put some follow-up information in the recorded version that we'll be sending out to all the registrants. So you'll have that information in your email as well.
Yeah, great.
Great. So it looks like we that's about all the questions that we had here. So it's about time. If you guys do have any last-minute questions, feel free to ask them here, and then we'll follow up with you via email if we weren't able to address those on the line. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us for today's presentation, and we hope you have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.